This life's a voyage, the world's a sea, where men are strangely tossed about. Heaven's our port, steer thou that way, there thou shalt anchor safe, no doubt. Inscription on a tombstone in the cemetery of St. Nicholas Church, Great Yarmouth, England. On February 21, 1621, cold water was poured over a baby in the stone font of St. Nicholas Church in Great Yarmouth, England. Occurring at the end of morning prayer in the ancient church, her baptism was one in a continuum of such ceremonies celebrated on the site over the previous millennium. The vestmented priest, if he used the mandated Book of Common Prayer, announced to those present, "We receive this child into the congregation of Christ's flock, and do sign her with the sign of the cross, in token that hereafter she shall not be ashamed to confess the faith of Christ crucified." This baptism is the first historical record of Rebecca Town of Great Yarmouth, better known later as Rebecca Nurse of Salem Village. Her hometown of Great Yarmouth lies on the eastern coast of England, at the mouth of the namesake River Yare. The ancient seaside town featured a market square surrounded by stone buildings, between which ran more than 150 narrow medieval alleys. These buildings were so tightly packed that only carts less than 3.5 feet wide could pass these tight paths. Near the central market lay the medieval castle, in the process of being demolished. Converted to a jail during the tumultuous preceding century, it kept prisoners criminal, political, and religious. The town was a little more than a mile from top to bottom on a triangular peninsula. The short side faced north, the long eastern side faced the North Sea, and the western side was a quay facing the River Yare. A wall of flint defended the northern and eastern sides, over a mile in length. Its 10 gates and 16 fortified towers reminded the inhabitants of the perils of living on the coast, across the narrow sea from their Catholic enemies in the Spanish Netherlands. In 1588, with the Spanish Armada off the coast, additional fortified mounds were built with cannons atop them, and the city was garrisoned with soldiers to defend against a feared invasion. A sandy beach ran along the seaside eastern fortifications, and beyond that, the sails of trading ships glided along the North Sea, headed for Dutch ports. The sea was the lifeblood of Yarmouth, with fishing as a leading occupation, though it was also described as an enemy by one of Rebecca Town's contemporaries. The next enemy, though insensible, was the raging sea to the ocean east, which, from the first appearing of their buildings, has continually beaten upon them, and long since had inrushed not only upon Yarmouth, but also on the whole territories adjoining. The changing tides posed a potent danger. Town and her parents lived in a stone dwelling, likely small, somewhere in this seaside town. The exact location is not known. She was the daughter of William and Joanna Blessing Town, who wed at St. Nicholas Church in April 1620. William was born in 1599, and Joanna in 1595. William was a gardener, as was his father before him, though previously he served as an apprentice to a basket maker. In those days, a gardener in eastern England was similar to a small-time farmer, and grew vegetables and beans for consumption. These crops became increasingly important during the previous generation when there was a grain shortage. After Rebecca, the Towns had 7 more children: John, 1623, Susan, 1625, Edmund, 1628, Jacob, 1632, Mary, 1634, Joseph, 1639, and Sarah, 1642.